All right, everyone, welcome. My name is Sarah Sterling. I'm the program catalyst for Conveners.org, and this is our very first Masterclass series with Luni Libes from Fledge. I'll be pulling up a couple of intro slides in a second to introduce him in more detail, but thank you so much, Luni, for your time and expertise and investment in this community. So I'm going to go ahead.
It's Libes, by the way. No, nobody
Oh,
pronounces it
Libes.
correctly.
I'm so sorry. Oh, Craig's here. Great.
I'll do the admits while you're speaking.
Okay, thank you. Let me find my tab because we always have a lot of tabs open. Can everyone see my screen here?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about Angel Accelerators, and Luni will be going more into that in a second. But I wanted to give a little bit of background for those of you who might be new to Conveners.org. Conveners.org is a nonprofit organization based in the US.
Hold on. Your screen is totally black.
Oh, that's so weird. Why? Hold on. Let's redo this. Thanks, Luni. We have a volcano going off right now, so the internet might be a little messed up. Can you all see my screen now? No.
Still
all right. Well, I will do the spiel without the screen share. That's totally fine. So Conveners.org is a nonprofit organization based in the United States, but we have a global and completely remote team. We are a community of different members, thanks TJ, from all over the globe, purpose-first, impact-focused conveners. And by conveners, we mean anyone, individual organization that's dedicated to bringing people together to create catalytic social and or environmental impact. And so apart from our membership community, we also have a ton of different membership benefits and services. If you would like more information about that, I'll leave my email in the chat. But I wanted to pass it off to Luni, who is the founder and managing director of Fledge, as well as wears a ton of other different hats. And I'm going to pass the mic off to him to get us started for today.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, so today we're going to talk about the Angel Accelerator and the idea of Angel Accelerators in general. My name's Luni Libes. You already heard that. This is my background. This is who I am. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I spent 20 years in tech building software companies in Seattle, backed by California VCs. And then I woke up. I started teaching at a business school, the first business school in the world to teach how to do good through business. That's where I learned how to do good through business. That led to Fledge. Fledge is a global network of impact accelerators. And out of my work at Fledge over the last 9 years came a whole bunch of spin-outs. One of them is the Angel Accelerator. One's a Pan-African holding company called Africa Eats. And one's a nonprofit. It's a very strange nonprofit. It turns philanthropy into impact investments. You can reach out to me on, you can Google any of those and find out more about those. Today, we're going to focus on Angel Accelerators. This is a picture of the Fledge network. What's interesting about this, besides the fact it's all impact, is this is all partners. So I run the one in Seattle, and I'm the CEO of Africa Eats, but the rest of the logos are other organizations. They do whatever they want to do for their entrepreneurs, whatever theme they have, geography or topic. And the Angel Accelerator came out of the work that I did over at Frontier Incubators in Singapore. That was an accelerator for accelerators, which if you're not in the space just sounds crazy, but we did one. It was backed by the Australian government. The idea was to help the ecosystems in Southeast Asia to help those entrepreneurs. So we did an accelerator. We had like 150 applicants, 150 organizations that help entrepreneurs between Pakistan and Fiji, like every country except the big ones. So not China, not India, not Siberia, not Asian Russia, not Japan, but every other country applied. And we had 18 organizations in person in Singapore for a week to run through an accelerator for accelerators. And the common theme that we got from talking to all of them, plus all of the teachers, was there just aren't enough angels. There aren't enough investors. There isn't enough money flowing to these companies, and that's a challenge, and this is the solution. Right. So in terms of startup accelerators, there's a lot of them. I date it back, because I'm a techie, I date it back to Y Combinator and Techstars. They started in, I think it was 06, maybe one of them started in 05. And there's been a lot of copycats. So there are literally thousands and thousands of accelerators. This is not a map of accelerators. I couldn't find one of those, but this is what it feels like. You go any city in the world, you'll find at least one. You go to the big cities, you'll find a lot of them. They're really easy to start up. They do help, but the fundamental issue is there's just not enough money for their graduates. Right? The problem is that it's easy to start an accelerator, but it's much easier to start a company. So there are millions of companies that have been started, and a lot of them die in the valley of death. Right? So that's literally what it's called. Also the missing middle. It's got a couple other names, but fundamentally the problem is we got great ideas out there and not enough friends and family money, certainly not enough angels or seed capital. And so the companies just can't make it through to the growth stage. They die in this valley, missing the capital they need in order to make it through. And the question is why? Like, why is this such a big issue? If there are more entrepreneurs every year and more startups, there should be more capital flowing. And there is, but the entrepreneurs have been going much quicker. Part of that is it's much cheaper to start a company now than when I first started in the 90s. Back then, we had to buy everything. We had to buy a phone system. Like we literally, when we started a company with 10 employees, we had to spend tens of thousands of dollars putting a phone on everyone's desk. People didn't have them in their pockets. The early internet was expensive. Reaching out and doing marketing was expensive. Now I run global companies. I run it from here in my void. And I literally can reach everyone in the world, right? And I can reach them on MailChimp and all those tools that are online. It's gotten cheaper and easier to start companies. It's gotten cheaper and easier to find customers. But it hasn't gotten much cheaper or easier for investors to find companies or companies to find investors. That's getting a little easier with crowdfunding, but just not easy enough. So again, this reality is that there are millions of startups each year. There are only hundreds of thousands of angel investors globally. The biggest number ever heard in the United States was 200,000. Not all of them are active in any one year. So tens of thousands of active ones in a year, hundreds of thousands globally in any year. And there are literally, if you don't know it, there's only a few hundred venture capital funds. There are active venture capital funds in the US right now is like 200 or 300 full-scale venture capital funds, not the seed funds. It's a tiny bit. We're not going to talk too much about venture capital today. So if we put that back on this map, what we have is a huge number of startups, a lot fewer angels, and just a handful of VCs. And what we need, really? I thought I had another slide in there. Whoa. Yeah. And so the solution is we got to make more angels. Right. And so this program I'm about to show you will explain how to do that. So why are there so few angels? I'm going to ask that question. Well, here's how angel investing works today and has been working for decades, right? Back to the 60s when angel investing was a new phenomenon. Right. So angel investing is in investing in early stage companies, investing in startups. Not necessarily family office, but like individual people with their own money writing checks to startups, typically $25,000 checks. So how do you learn how to be an angel? First of all, you got to make a lot of money. So you got to be rich because you have to write $25,000 checks. Then typically what you do is you find an angel group. I couldn't find a map of angel groups, like all the angel groups in the country. There's about 700 of them. But I did find a picture of this, which is all the women-run angel funds in the country. And some of these, Serif's gone. This is an old map. So I know at least one on this map here in Seattle is no longer around, but there's a lot of these angel groups around. Again, every big city has at least one. I'm here in Seattle. We have 9 at the moment that are running. So what you do is you join an angel group and you sit in the back of the room and you watch what the other people are doing, because when you join the angel group, they don't hand you a handbook. They don't hand you a guide. They don't do, they might be running some education, but it's ad hoc and occasional. So really what you do is you sit in the back of the room and you observe what's going on and you hear the jargon being used in the room. And if you listen enough, you figure out what it means. And if you're brave, you might turn to the person on your left and say, what do they mean deal flow? Well, like, what's that word mean? Or what do they mean lead a deal? Like, there's a lot of jargon in this space. And you may join in the due diligence meetings just to learn what that is, right? If you've never done it before. And eventually you get up your nerve as an investor and you write a check. And that first check is really scary because the first check is generally $25,000. And even if you're rich, even if you got a few $1,000,000 in the bank, that's not a tiny little check. Right? If you have way too much money, if you have 100 million or $1,000,000,000, you don't be an angel. Most people just skip that and do something else. So you write your first check. Nothing happens because these things take forever to return. You observe some more. You do some more due diligence. You hopefully write some more checks. Eventually, maybe if you're 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 of these angels, you eventually get comfortable enough to lead a deal. But along the way, you're basically learning by observation. I call it an ad hoc apprenticeship because it's like an apprenticeship without the master actually teaching you anything. And this is real. I've had the ACA come on my talks and tell me and tell my audience, yeah, we're the gold standard. The ACA, the Angel Capital Association, is the gold standard of angel education. And what they mean by that is they hold a couple events per year where people speak, where we have panels and whatnot. And that's an extra cost, and you got to fly somewhere to go do that, and it's expensive. So instead of that, what we're doing, this is real. This is not a proposed idea, but something we have for real, is an accelerator for angels that's structured, just like a startup accelerator has a structure to it. That there's some learning through lessons, that there's some actual teaching that goes on in a structured manner. That not only is it book learning, it's not just a bunch of guest speakers coming in and sharing anecdotes, but it's a structured learning like you would have in a class. And then you apply those lessons in the program. So what makes the accelerator different from a lot of these other trainings that are out there is that there will be an investment made, at least one, hopefully more than one, made by those people who are participating. Everybody in the program has to make an investment before it ends. And just like a startup accelerator is short, we do these in a short time period, 10 or 12 weeks. So just a few months. And let me walk you through that. So the basic structure, if you are a convener, because you're on this call here, what you do is you do a few weeks. We did 2 months of free programming. So the freemium model of we'll give away some content that will get an audience to show up. We did 7 weeks earlier this year, and we had about 500 people show up. Then you tell them that at the end of that free session, free series, they need to sign up if they want the actual paid program. And so they got to sign up, and we did that on a Google form. And then in terms of what you have to do as a convener is to do all the normal prep you would do for a paid program. And then you run a paid program. And we've been running these weekly. And when we talk about what the paid program is, and again, I'll walk you through the details, you choose whether this is an online program or an in-person program, whether it's everything's done in the room together, whether it's Zoom room or in-person room, synchronously, or whether it's flipped, and I'll walk through that. You decide whether a teacher's teaching this or it's a series of guest speakers. All that is customizable to fit your needs. And it begins with orientation. I'm going to actually walk you through the orientation slides in a little bit. So here's what it really looked like right now. So we're really doing 2 of these right now. This is the calendar for my program. So January 13th, on Wednesday, January 13th, we started doing the free programs, and they ran 7 of them, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you guys haven't done virtual programs, national virtual programs yet, you will find that time zones are not your friend. Right? So 6 p.m. is a little too early for the Pacific Coast, 9 p.m. is a little too late for the East Coast. Too bad. You can run them twice if you want, but we wanted to stick them in one. And now we're in week 4 is later today. It's the same time. Basically, we picked the time for the free programs to be the same time as the paid programs so that people get used to the time. So we'll do week 4 tonight, and we'll finish up on May 19th. And the partner program that's doing this by AVPA, which is the Africa Venture Philanthropy Alliance. Well, look at that. The calendar is pretty much the same. I can flip between the 2, and I put in red what's different. What's different is that they took 2 weeks off, or they're taking 2 weeks off for Easter. So you have to know who your audience is and know when they can't make it. So this program is focused on Africa, given the partner. And they said, well, we know we need to take off Easter week. Just to be safe, we'll take off 2. So they're basically spring break is what we'd call it in the States. But otherwise, it runs the same period of time. You can see that there was no difference whatsoever in the beginning. I can't see the chat window yet. I'll get to the chat window stuff when I'm done here. You can see the beginning part was the same. Yeah, we actually ran exactly the same content for both programs on exactly the same day. Theirs was 9 hours before mine. So I would just come on in my morning and present for them. 9 hours later, I would present for me. And we had slightly different guest speakers and whatnot, given the audience. This is what we did for 7 weeks. Basically, it's just a taste. So the first one is almost what you're getting right now, slightly different, tuned to a slightly different audience. And then we spent 2 weeks talking about impact investing, because what we care about is impact investing. So we took the time to teach that and record that. And then we went in the next few weeks in February, went deeper into angel investing. And you can see what was interesting here. We skipped Angel Investing 101. We knew from the people who had signed up, we had asked them, have you done an angel investment before? And we were surprised that the answer was mostly yes. And so we skipped Angel Investing 101 and we just decided to do Angel Investing 201. We didn't actually pick all the topics when we started. We only picked the first 3. And then we tuned the free programming to match the audience we were getting, because it's marketing. You're trying to get the people to sign up. And then we did a few more topics. All of these are sitting online. Everything we do gets posted online. We're giving away our content for free on purpose. And then at the end of these 7 weeks, we asked people to sign up. So we kept telling them every week, starting in week 1, you don't have to sign up now. You don't have to sign up now. You don't have to sign up, in our case, until March 1st, right? Wednesday, March 3rd was the first week, the first day of the first week. But as we got closer and closer to March 1st, the messaging kept getting stronger and stronger about, well, you don't have to sign up, but you can. So the first 3 weeks, we didn't even have the sign up form. And then by the time we got to February, it's like, you don't have to sign up till March, but you can. Here's the sign up form. By the time we got to the middle of February, we had, I think, 5 people signed up. By the time we got to week 7, we had about 10. And it's about a dozen in each of the programs right now. And what we were talking about with them is, here's what comes in the 12-week program. And I'm going to walk you through that in some other slides. There's a cost to this. Again, to make sure there's the investment that happens, we ask them to commit capital. So again, one of the key differences between this program and others that do training for angels is we require committed capital upfront. And the cost of that is up to the organizer. So the Angel Accelerator for Africa is $5,500. $5,000 goes into a pool. $500 is the fee for the program. The one I'm running, the Fledge program, is $10,700. It's $10,000. Technically, this version is going into a fund. Last year, it just went into Fledge. So $10,000 went into Fledge. Last year it was $10,500. I upped the price to $10,700 because everybody liked it last year. So I just said, well, let's try a higher fee. I don't think anybody said no because of the fee. I'm sure some of the people picked the $5,500 program because it was half the price, or even less than half the price. We had a bunch of Americans go over there. I had a bunch of people who did my program last year decide to do the Africa program. I think most of that is they caught the bug and they want to invest in Africa. And some of that is that I'm charging $10,000 on my side. And so you pick the number that you think works in your for your audience. And in this case, last year, the way we did this is the second and third programs that are running right now. Last year's program ran as part of the Startup Accelerator. So we took $10,000 per angel, and we turned around and then spent $20,000 per startup. And the angels funded the startups, and I'll talk about that in a bit as well. So here's the actual slides from orientation. We started off with the standard icebreakers, get to know you. And then the meat of the conversation was to figure out what they already knew so that we could customize the content to fit what they wanted to learn. It's angel investing is a very deep, big topic. It can't fit into 12 weeks. There's actually way more content than you could do in 12 weeks. And we've actually done that. Even last year, because of the pandemic, this was supposed to be an in-person program. It wound up being an online program with an unbounded date because I just didn't want to get bored. So I just told them, we'll keep going as long as we want. And we wound up going 27 calendar weeks and like 19 sessions. So we have content that we've already covered for 19 sessions, and there were more topics we could have done. And there's some topics we're doing this year that we didn't do last year. So trying to narrow down exactly what to teach them is trouble. So what we did for this year, for sessions 2 and 3, we started with an orientation and said, well, let's go through everything you can learn and find out what you guys want to learn. And that's what we'll make the program about. So what do you want to know? And then the third question, or the second question here, or another question here, was how much time do you want to spend on the program? So by now, they'd already knew that they were committed to spend $500 or $700 on this class, and they already committed the capital for the investment. But what we didn't know yet was how much time. Did they want to spend the 2 hours a week that we had on the calendar, which is nominally more like 75 minutes or 90 minutes, or did they want to spend more time? And so in my version of this orientation, I explained to them the difference between synchronous learning and flipped classroom. And if you don't know these two terms, synchronous or asynchronous, synchronous is where the teacher is lecturing to you live, just like I'm doing now for the people who are here live. If you're watching the video, then you're doing the flipped version. The flipped version is you assign the lectures to be watched when the program isn't happening. So you say next week we're talking about Angel Investing 301, go watch those videos. And then when you show up, you will talk about whatever questions you have about that topic. And then we'll do something in the synchronous time that's hard to do in a recorded manner. Like we'll bring in a live entrepreneur that you can talk to. And so I explained the two methods and the pros and cons of those. And then with that, I went through a whole bunch of different topics. And I'll just do these really quickly. So for instance, do you know how to screen deal flow? Right? Do you know what deal flow is? And then do you have a process for screening it, or do you just use your gut? Would you like to learn a process for screening it and get out of your gut? We have a topic on that. We have a way to teach that. And then I just asked in the chat window really quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want to learn this? One is I already know it or I don't want to learn it. And 10 is yes, please have it in the curriculum. And we did that. So we gathered that information and I just saved the chat window. Same thing on due diligence. How good are you at due diligence? Do you know everything that needs to get checked on due diligence? Do you want to spend one of the lectures on due diligence? Yeah, scale of that 1 to 10. Yellow flags and red flags. Now that you've been through and you've seen the materials in due diligence, do you know what all the yellow flags are to look out for? Do you know what the red flags are to look out for? Would you like to include that in the curriculum? Do you know how to, do you know the terms for investments? Do you know how to do evaluation? Do you know what a liquidation preference is? Have you led a deal before? Like those kind of questions. We had a discussion, again, 1 to 10. Are you searching for unicorns, or do you know that there are other things, other ways to invest besides unicorn hunting? We have a lecture on that. This is one of my favorite. We just did this one last week. I teach entrepreneurs. That's my job, right? And again, if you think about where I discovered this idea, I was out teaching organizations that teach entrepreneurs how to raise money. And so we teach entrepreneurs how to do a pitch. What I have never seen before is teaching the angels how to deconstruct the pitch to see what's hiding in there. And so this is a lecture that I actually do for the entrepreneurs. And then I just changed, for every slide I have three extra slides talking about what's on the slide, what they say when they're speaking it, and what to look out for. The green slides change when I do the lecture for entrepreneurs versus investors. And a lot of the yous and theys change in the descriptions here. But otherwise, it's the same lecture. So it's really fun for me to and I'd done this on the same day as well last year. I taught the entrepreneurs in the morning how to put together a pitch deck that wows an audience. And then I taught, 8 hours later, the investors, and taught them how to deconstruct it to see what the entrepreneurs were hiding. Anyway, we did that. We did the one for financial models. How do you put them together as an entrepreneur? How do you review them as an investor? Same kind of thing. And then I have a couple others that are just historical. I find them interesting. So what's the true purpose of business? Where does the whole idea come from that the sole purpose of business is to maximize shareholder value. There's a few of those in here. There's some slides that I took out here. We did a strategic, real world case study last year of a real business. It was like a 2-week-old problem. One of the entrepreneurs from the Startup Accelerator had a big decision to make. I got his permission to clean it up and turn it into a business, a case study like you'd see in business school. I presented it to the entrepreneurs in the morning, 8 hours later to the investors, got completely different results. It was really fun. So I presented that this year as an option. And with all that data, like even with before that data, the orientation slide was this one, and it said, all right, so again, the question is, how much time do you want to spend? If we're going to do this in the synchronous style, here are the type of things we could cover. So I showed off about 15 topics in the 15 minutes before that, 20 minutes before that, and then we get to this slide, and we go, okay, here's kind of the pieces we can cover, where we have the last 2 weeks blocked off to make investments. So it's a 12-week program, but we're going to make investments. So we're going to spend some weeks doing that. First week was when I was speaking, was orientation. And here's what else could fit. And, I'll go through the 1s through 10s and I'll tweak it. But if you want to do synchronous, this is what we could cover. But if you want to do flipped, we can cover twice the material, actually more than twice the material. And what we saw in both the Africa cohort and the US cohort is that it was unanimous. Everybody wanted to do flipped, which made life good because I like to teach more, and then added the burden of, well, that's a lot more hours of my time as well. I got to make sure something's prepped for them to watch beforehand and something is synchronous. So it's kind of twice as much prep for me and my partner. But we both want to make this as good as possible. That's why we put this out as an option. And so far, Flipped has been working great. They've been watching everything. They've been assigned. That's always been an issue, especially with entrepreneurs who get busy. But hasn't been an issue with the investors yet. And the other thing that they told me in my cohort was they wanted more live case studies. They wanted more case studies. They wanted more live discussions with entrepreneurs. And so as you can see, the stuff in blue here is the topic that they watch at home. Everyone's at home. This is the topic they watch on video beforehand. And then what's in black is what we do in the live session. And this isn't exactly what we're doing because it got tweaked based on, again, on those 1 to 10s, but it's something along these lines. All right. And then there's one more thing because I like Steve, and there's always one more thing. And that thing is the way we ran it last year. So this is a useful program for creating angels in general, but it's also been proven out to be an incredibly useful program for funding a startup accelerator. And this is how I funded Fledge last year. The Fledge was the Fledge 16 program. So we did format A, which was nominally to run them at the same time. So we ran a bunch of that. We did all the free recruiting stuff in the early part of the year last year. We got them recruited by February. We then put them in a room the first 2 weeks of February. And the second of those weeks, we said, you can't leave the room until you've picked the startups for the Startup Accelerator. So we had 14 angels signed up, or 14 seats were sold. One of the other things we do is we sell them in seats so that husbands and wives or fathers and kids can come, or kids and parents. They can go the other way around. So we had 18 people, but 14 seats. We got most of them in a room and we gave them a bunch of options and we said, pick. Like this is where your money's going to go. Pick 7 companies. So 14 times $10,000 is $140,000. We do 7 companies in our cohorts and we give them $20,000 a piece. That was $140,000. We have some other money just in case it didn't match up, but it was great. So their money, 100% of their money went to these startups. They had no problem in 2 hours picking the startups, 2 hours, 15 minutes, something like that. And then we were going to take a break and the Startup Accelerator is going to start 6 weeks later. There was a pandemic. If you missed the news, we got locked down a few weeks later and we just started everything in March together. And we ran them on the same day together. The angels then became the mentors. and not just the mentors, but in the Techstar language, the lead mentors, because these were their companies. So they didn't have to be convinced that this was a good idea. They're already invested in all 7 companies. And so they each picked 1 or 2 to go and mentor. And we would do check-ins on our weekly meetings about who did you talk to this week and what did you learn about them. And again, their money was the first money into these startups. So that worked. But there's also a format B, because I was warned before this by someone who's done programs like this before, that these angels didn't have any training, and yet I was asking him to pick the startups in week 1. And that seemed odd to him. It did prove out to work just fine. But he suggested something more like format B, which is you run the Angel Accelerator first, and you time it so that the end of the Angel Accelerator is when you have to pick the startups for the Startup Accelerator. So they're picking them at the end of the program. That's the money they've put in. And then they're probably active mentors, but not necessarily lead mentors, because they're not coming every week anymore. Right? Their timing is different than the startup timing. But nonetheless, their money is now the first money in the startups. Either way you do this, the whole purpose of this is to build out an ecosystem. And the benefit is now you have a collection of angels, assuming you do this at the same cadence you're doing the startup accelerators. You have a collection of angels who all have learned from you, who all have learned by talking to your startups. And therefore, they're looking to you and your deal flow to be their deal flow. And so you're now creating angels, not just more angels, but more angels that are aligned with whatever you do. Right? And so in my case, that's impact globally. Although this year I'm doing a US version. I'm going to expect, despite the fact I'm telling everyone it's a US cohort, I got all Americans in it, and we're promised to make investments in American companies. I don't think all the money is going to wind up in American companies, because that's just not what I do. So I think they're going to wind up following me and what my work is more than what we said that the program was about. And we're doing this in a license model. So this was something that Fledge created, but we've taken it out of Fledge. We're handing it off to my nonprofit. And we're doing this as a cooperatively run program, a cooperatively run network. And it starts with 3 members. So Fledge is a member, AVPA is a member, and then we have a partner up in Canada that's doing very similar programs up there. They call them the Investor Challenges. They ran 2 of them last year. They're running another one right now, or they're recruiting right now. And they're planning on like 5 more across Canada. And we're looking for other partners that would like to run similar programs. When I say license, we give you all the stuff you need to run these. We give you a little bit of training so that you can succeed in the first try. Excuse me. You pay $100 per investor is the price of the license. So no annual fee, no maintenance fee, no ongoing fee, no cost before you actually run the program. When you sign up an angel into your program, you pay us $100, and that's it, one-time fee. And we are expecting that all the angels from all the programs everywhere in the world will all get collected together and treated as one big giant angel group. So we're going to see if we can make the angel group to be all angel groups that has, in a few years, thousands of members in it. And lastly here, if you want to see what this is like, you come to theangelaccelerator.com. We'll tell you more about it on the About page. The list of all the programs and the map is on where and when. All of our content that's been edited and posted so far is on lessons. It's also on YouTube, but it's organized better on lessons. And if you want to contact me, you can just click on the contact button. And with that, that is the end. I will go check the chat window and open to questions. And there is not a volcano going off here at the moment, thank God. Okay, Nancy asks, is the accelerator for angels just for impact investing? The answer is no. You can use it for any kind of angels you want. I'm just into impact investing, and the content will have examples from the world of impact investing in it. So we don't have any content at the moment that's about unicorn hunting. We have some content that explains why that's not a good idea. But we do expect that this network will grow beyond impact investing to be all sorts of things, including traditional tech. Cyrus asks, were most of the startups B2B or B2C? That's a great version of traditional investing versus impact. It's not a distinction we make in the world of impact. It is one we could make, and I could go back through and try and figure it out, but it's not one I even think of. I think of the SDGs and which impacts they're having, and don't care whether they're selling to customers or selling to businesses. I am a former techie. I spent 20 years there, and that was the big distinction back in my tech days. You can go look on the Fledge site to see who they were. Are any of the SEC disclosure? How do we have to deal with the SEC? So it depends on where you are in the world. So if you're here in the States, then yes, you have to worry about the SEC and all their rules. What I'm doing right now in my what I did last year was I said you got to be either accredited. Well, I did two things. One, I said accredited is great. You can be accredited in anywhere you want in the country. But since we were doing this as an in-person program in Seattle, I used an intrastate exemption to raise money from any Washington resident. And that let me take money from non-accredited investors who lived in Washington. This year, I'm running a national program that doesn't work. So this year I did a partnership with WeFunder. And so the new rules came in, the SPVs are now possible. I happen to know the guys at WeFunder already. And I said, how about I don't make a fund for this? How about you guys just do the money? So they said, yes, we have a signed partnership. And so the $10,000 is promised to be put into a WeFunder account. And we will invest through WeFunder. And again, I expect most of the money to flow that way. And I expect one or two deals to be done direct on the side from accrediteds. If you don't have either of those options, and you're trying to deal with it, then you got to go with accredited only and create an SPV somewhere. AngelList will happily run a fund for you for a fee, or you can use a syndicate model from them. There are a bunch of different options. In Africa, we've looked at a bunch of different options over there. This was a stumbling block when we figured this out in Singapore, and I started talking to the organizations over there being Southeast Asia. There are a lot fewer easy structures for funds. There are some countries over there that just have never seen a fund before. So how to create a pool of capital legally and affordably is a trouble issue. And so this might not be possible to do absolutely everywhere. The fallback that we talked about, which we haven't had to do yet, is to do it like an angel group and say, okay, you're honorably committed to 5 or 10,000 or 7,000 or whatever the number is. You're honorably committed to make this investment, and we'll hold you up to that. But everybody's just going to invest directly at the end, like an angel group would. So that works everywhere. That would be a club model instead of a fund model. Okay. Jen asks, are there any angel investors you won't accept into your program? I've just found in 9 years of working in the world of social good and impact investing that there are way fewer people that are troublesome than there are back in the tech world. And so I've not had an angel conversation from a person who thinks they're an impact investor who I wouldn't invite in. So I had no problems last year. I know no problems this year. Everybody seems to be a lovely person. If I were doing this in the tech world, yeah, I might do not background checks, but I might ask for references, and I would use my LinkedIn connections to look up people. We do have in our contract the right to kick them out at any time. We'll give them back their investment capital. We'll keep their fee. So there's a little piece in there. And my work with angel groups, I haven't actually come across anybody that I didn't like in the angel groups. All right. You also ask, you guys can come off of mute too. It's much nicer to speak. How do you find the startups? So when I'm doing this for the Startup Accelerator, we have our whole big process for finding startups. We get hundreds. We get more than we could possibly fund. This year, since we're not doing that, we said, well, I will personally look through everything that's listed on WeFunder. It's only like 160 companies. I'll go pick out a few that look interesting to me and fundable to me. I suggest by the time we get to the end of it that others do the same thing. And it turns out that about half the people who signed up have done an angel investment before, like one or two. They just don't feel like they know how to do it because they've been doing this apprentice model. So they have some deals that they like. They have some deals they've already invested in. So this year, I don't expect all the money to be like the first check into companies. I do expect some growth stage investments to be made, because I do want to teach them the difference between brand new first time money and second round or third round money. And so I'm hoping we have 3 investments. Ideal end state for me is the 10 grand gets split, 3, 3, and 4, whatever proportions they like. And one of those checks goes to something that's growth stage, or 2 goes to growth stage and 1 goes to new. Craig said, thanks. I went through a number of weeks. He's too busy. How would you distribute the exits? So that depends on how you structure the fund. So if it's run as a simple SPV or a simple seed fund, then it's usually just a pro rata. We did get asked, I don't know if you asked or somebody else asked, is the $10,000 the minimum or the maximum? And my answer was, until the group says otherwise, it's the only number you can put in. You can invest more yourself separately. But generally, when we do these little funds, everybody writes the same size check so that no egos get in the way of somebody saying, well, I wrote a bigger check, so I get 2 votes. Like that's not good in that final decision room, to have the people thinking they're better than other people, or they have their opinions better than other people. So it's good to be egalitarian in that piece. And if you do the fund model, then it's pro rata share. If we're doing the WeFunder model, then it's all individuals. You put 10 grand in your WeFunder account, you could make 10 investments at $1,000 a piece if you wanted to. And then when an exit happened, it's just whoever invested in whatever made money. In the startup accelerator model, I run it as a fund. So then it gets even more complicated because it's a rolling fund with 3 years, and but eventually gets back out to everyone. Okay, Cyrus asked about impact measurement. We did a topic on that. It's sitting on the lessons page. And I do a little bit of bashing of Iris and Gears and a whole bunch of other things. I actually wrote a book on impact measurement, and I still don't have an answer, even though I wrote a whole book and have an answer. It's not the answer. So I haven't seen a solution to that, including my own. Corey asks, can you talk about how you go finding and recruiting the angels? Yeah, that's a harder part. So here we just did this year. Everybody's at home. Nobody's traveling, right? Although Craig's busy, but nobody's going anywhere. You would think that we could find 1,000 people to show up, but it's hard. So I use my network, which is pretty big. I use the AVP. AVPA had a pretty big network. So between the 2 of us, we started recruiting. We have friends out there in the industry, so we told them about this, and they started sending us people as well. I had one previous year of doing this in Seattle, and invited them back as well. And then it's just the standard social messaging and word of mouth and LinkedIn. And one of the most effective things that I've seen out there for finding new people you've never worked with before in this way is you create events on your corporate page on LinkedIn, and then you can do 1,000 invitations a week. So if you have a LinkedIn network like mine, well, mine's huge, but if you have a LinkedIn network and you have all these people you've met at conferences and whatnot, but you don't really know them, you can blast them an invite on LinkedIn, and a lot of them will see it. LinkedIn does go to spam, but more people will see that than just MailChimp. And then I put this in all my MailChimp newsletters, and I have a pretty big MailChimp as well. So just normal stuff. And we had, I don't think we even had 100 in any given week, but we had just shy of 500 overall in 7 weeks. Close rate in terms of sales, about 6.5% of the people who showed up signed up. So I'll take that as, anything over 5% I'm happy with. And I was fretting in January before we launched, worrying about, well, what would this look like if 100 people signed up? Because last year it was it's 18 people, 14 seats. And so I'm sitting there in January going, I'm doing a national program. I could get before we did even the first event, 1,000 people could come to the third event. It's possible. I have the connections to make it possible. What would happen if 100 people said yes? What would those events feel like? The actual paid part. I don't care about teaching to 1,000 people. That doesn't matter. But if 100 people were in the room on Wednesday nights trying to learn this, you can't really have intimate conversations. It's a very different kind of event than a dozen. Was I going to do 2? Was I going to try and find the people who want to do Thursdays and do Wednesdays and Thursdays? Or split it by East Coast and West Coast and do 6 p.m., 3 p.m. my time and 6 p.m. my time, and just do everything twice. Didn't have to deal with that this year, but hopefully some year we have to deal with that. We have a master. So spring is coming back. I saw that spring has a whole bunch of in the conveners. They had like 3 talks coming up.
And it has been like,
hey Ben,
do it like instead of typing. Thanks a lot for your presentation. I got a question for you because I'm a member of the Rockies Venture Club of E8 in Seattle, more specifically investing in clean tech. Yep. And something I'm struggling with is that especially on the Rockies Venture Club, we have a training program that's been run for several years. So it's relatively working well on the process of being an angel investor. But then the difficulty is when we're starting to dig into a deal, which is like wave energy or battery, then people are totally lost because they just don't have any knowledge. And so my question to you is, would you recommend that we try to focus people on specific technologies so that they get comfortable, or do you think it's okay to keep a network of people who are not technologically savvy and can't really do deep DD on the
I've heard this question come up a lot because I am a very broad investor. So Fledge does impact investing. We don't care which impact it is. Mm-hmm. And we've done 100 and something investments. And we've covered 16 of the 17 goals. Not because we picked 16 of the 17, but the 17th, we've had companies in our short list, we just haven't picked them. We got hung up, that's education, and we always get hung up on, that's an annual, their sales cycle is annual for most education companies, and it's not for everything else, so let's pick something else. That's generally where the conversation went, and it went that way last year as well. And so I hear this advice all the time, which is you should focus. Like you should go deeper into something you know better, because if you know better, you'll make better decisions. I just don't find it as fun. What I do instead is what you suggested. Because I run a startup accelerator, I have a network of hundreds, 700 people who know things. And so when I get an application in a space I have no knowledge of, I just shoot them an email, and somebody in that network knows the answer. Or if you don't, Ian has the same kind of network out there. For his program, I can get an answer for anything you want. I don't think the only time we've been stumped wasn't when we asked something as simple as who knows something about cold storage or fusion energy or something like that. But when we asked a tougher question, like we have a stream of human waste in India, we have the technology to turn it into something of value, but it can't be electricity, and it can't just be heat. What else could it be? Like we asked that of the crowd, and we got some answers, but none of them penciled out.
I get excited when I get a company for which I haven't seen, because 20 years in, although the last time that happened was actually nuclear fission. I was like, this is totally new. I have nobody. We do have a lot of human waste people, if you're still wondering about that, but for later.
Yeah, I personally love it when I see a new business model in a space I've seen before. So I really get off on business models. And you get that. I don't know. I get that by going broad. You did bring up something that jogged my memory. I didn't put in the slide deck. Something I learned, the way I got to where we are here in this presentation is a friend of mine named John Seacrest. He runs the Seattle Angel Conference. And he's been doing that for the same length of time I've been doing Fledge. So it's been almost 9 years. And they've run 17 of them, all but the last 2 in person here in Seattle, and they across the metropolitan area. And the difference between the 2 programs is that they don't do any teaching. So they do 8 weeks of guest speakers to warm up the audience, and then people sign up, and it's $5,500 per seat. But then all they do in their 12 weeks is a business plan competition. So they're also recruiting entrepreneurs who would like to earn, they like to get the one investment at the end, and all that money is going to go to one investment in the end. So they do everything hands-on, not in terms of a mix of this teaching and case studies and whatnot. And he and I disagree on this, but he helped me create this program anyway. The big learning I had in working with John was that his target audience isn't the people who sign up to be part of E8 or Alliance of Angels or Puget Sound Venture Club or Rockies or Investor Circle, which is now a Social Venture Circle, or Golden Seeds or anybody else. He's not actually looking for the people who would join an angel group. And I totally misunderstood when he started. For 7 years, I misunderstood that he was not trying to do that. So I was frustrated in watching him run this program over and over again and not have, he'd have 40 angels in a crowd, 40 angels in a session, and he wouldn't have 30 of them joining an angel group afterwards. And he wouldn't have 20 of them writing checks to any company I saw in Seattle afterwards. And I'm like, why is this? Like, explain to me, John, what you're doing wrong. And he said, I'm not doing anything wrong. He said, you have to understand that the people who can afford to be in an angel group have $5 million or more. So just do the numbers. It's $25,000 a check. You're expected to write 20 checks if you want to make money being an angel. Right? That's the 15 minimum, but 20 is the rough number. So $25,000 times 20 checks is $500,000. You have to have $1 million to be accredited, but you shouldn't be putting half of your net worth into startups. That's a bad idea. Like, I'm a startup junkie, but that's a bad idea. So you better have, $5-ish million to be an angel in an angel group. And you may be accredited from your salary, and you may be doing it out of your salary. So that might be 100% true, but it's more or less true. He said, well, in the city of Seattle, which is his main focus, in the city of Seattle, we have 4 million people in the metropolitan area. And we have about 30 or 40,000 people who have $5 million or more. It's a very rich city, thanks to Microsoft and Amazon and other startups. So there are 30 or 40,000 potential angels out there. There are a few hundred in the angel groups. However, accreditation starts at $1 million. Just in the Seattle metropolitan area, there are 300,000 people who have $1 million or more. There are at least 300,000 people who are accredited, a lot of them based on salaries. Well, all of them could write a $5,000 check without batting an eye. That's a small check. So he asked them for a $5,000 check, and he's trying to get this much bigger group into his program to learn how to invest in groups, so that the next check they write might be 5,000 again or 10,000, or if it's 25, it's into 25 as a fund, and that 25 becomes 5 investments. And so if we do those numbers out for the entire United States, roughly there's about 3 million people in the United States who are in the top 1% who could write any check they wanted. There are about 35 million people who could write a check of $5,000 without batting an eye. And yet there are about 200,000 angels in the country. So this is what we mean by mismatch of angels and an opportunity. We could get, if we worked on it collectively, millions of people signing up to be angel investors if we made it easy for them to do it and we educated them. And so that's the target market he's working on. And that's the target market that we brought into this mindset when we said we're going to do the Angel Accelerator. So I'm aiming for maybe a little bit smaller group because I'm asking for $10,000. But I had people who said this is an enormous sum of money. Last year they said, like, I really want to do it. $10,000 is a lot of money. I said, well, the good news is it's $10,000 split across 7 companies. And it wound up being 9 companies in the end, but you're making a bet across 7 companies. Some of them will fail, but not all of them are likely to fail. And therefore, the odds of you getting your $10,000 back are okay. And if you do it again next year, which unfortunately we had a pandemic and it kind of got screwed up, but if you do this part where it's attached to a startup accelerator 3 years at $10,000 a piece, $30,000 becomes 21 investments. You've now hit that 20 investment threshold with just $30,000 of investment. That's affordable to anybody with $1 million or more. That fits the accreditation problem just fine, or the accreditation bar just fine. And it works for the people who can just do WeFunders. And what I didn't put in the rules was like, if somebody on WeFunder can only put in 7,000 because that's the limit, I'm going to say fine, and you put in 7,000 because that's the limit. Right? I'm not going to hold them to the 10,000 if legally they can't do it.
Yeah, Luni, I wanted to ask a question. This is Craig. I'm curious. It sounds like part of your theory of change or assumption. I mean, one, we need more people to do angel investing for impact. But two, if people are educated, they'll make smarter decisions, and not blow their money or give like $25,000 for one company. So do you have any data or anticipate having data, say in a couple of years, that people who go through the program are picking companies that have a higher success rate, or is that a fair assumption, or you just want to have more of the education side?
There's an unstated assumption that education will help. I think the bigger unstated assumption, maybe even stated assumption, is the education will just make the checks flow quicker. And the flaw I've seen, I've walked into many angel groups. I've been to almost everyone in Seattle and a bunch elsewhere in the country. And if I have the opportunity, if they're not asking it that day, I will ask the room, how many people had an exit last year? Right? And then everybody starts looking at the ground and looking at the ceiling because they don't want to face reality, and a few hands go up. But like a room of 40 people and you get like 2 hands going up. Those people aren't, the crowd is not going to be happy in a few years, no matter, how many investments they made, unless they're really, really active. There's a few people out there I've bumped into that have done 80 or 90 investments. They're fine. I have seen research. There's a group out of California called Right Side Capital. So two bits of research. There's the famous Rob Wiltbank paper from 2006. And it was supposed to be updated. Ian, did it ever get updated? No. Okay, so there's a famous paper called Angel Investing in Groups by Rob Wiltbank back when he was at Willamette University, 2006. You can Google it. And he found a data set of 6,000 and change investments made in the US and the UK. He's a statistician and proved that they're not biased in any way. They're 6,000 reasonable investments to be made. And if you had invested in all of them, you would have made 2.6 times your money back. And then you can do some Monte Carlo analysis to see what your expected return is. But basically, it was a nice distribution. And if there were some 30 X's in there and a whole lot of zeros, it was mostly zeros. And then this group out of California called Right Side Capital got permission from him to take the data set and do one other set of analysis in it, which is what happens if you make 100 investments? So if you take a random selection of 100 out of the 6,000, what happens? And the answer to that analysis, and I don't remember the exact digits in my head, was you have like with 100 investments, you have like a 99% chance of getting your money back and a reasonable chance of getting twice your money back. And then they said, okay, well, what if it was 200 investments? And at 200 investments, you have like a 99 point something. Maybe it was 90, I think it was 97% chance of getting your money back with 100, 99 with 200. But with 200, you had like a better than even chance of doubling your money. So they went into the business of doing 100 a year. They run a fund that does 100 a year. And they would do things like, we'll take everything from Y Combinator. Right? That's how they get to 100 a year. They'll take everything that comes out of Techstars. And they don't get into everything, but they try. So the analysis has shown that you have to do a lot of investments in order to make money in this space. Or to increase your odds of making money in this space, you have to make a lot of investments. Right? So this is also why I go down the path saying, great, let's do this for an accelerator where we're already doing a bunch of companies, and let's go kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Or 3 birds with 1 stone, because we also get people hooked on investing. I should also say that last year it was 14 seats, $140,000. And then in the months afterwards, another $150,000 got invested by those people. So we catalyzed slightly more than an equal amount of money that we had created. And I have no idea how much they would have done, but we did get second checks to show up. And about 4 of those people from last year are doing it this year. 4 of them are doing the Africa program, and 1 of them is doing both. So one guy got so hooked he just decided to do both programs this time. And I'm not teaching all of them anymore, so he's getting slightly different content from the 2 programs. All right, any other questions? We're dwindling in size here.
So Luni, you've been talking a lot about the success of the financial success of the investors. And I know you're very driven by impact and have a lot of thesis around that. So I'm curious, how do you look at the other side, the impact of the investees, the angels that you're investing in, and how do you, I mean, so it's not just about making money, but it's also about making this change around the SDGs. And I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the solution I figured out for me and my work is to focus on the business side. And I'm always talking about revenues because I'm a revenue-driven investor. But the way to simplify it down is I split up all the mission-driven companies into 3 buckets. And I've blogged about this, and I don't think I did this one on the Angel Accelerator yet, so I don't think there's a video of it. But I call all companies, let's call all companies 4 buckets. Or sorry, all companies are I did the blog, 5 different types of companies. First and foremost, we have companies like the oil companies. They're terrible for the world, like useful in historic times, but they're currently terrible for the world, and they're run in ways that don't do any good for society. They're just what I'm just going to consider uninvestable companies in my thesis. Second one are the ones that they have products out there that the products don't do anything good for the world, but they're scoring well in ESG. So, good for them. They're headed down the right path. And then we wind up with the last 3 buckets are mission driven. So there are 3 kinds of mission driven companies in my world. The first kind sells poison, but runs really well, right? Scores high. It's a certified B corporation. This is like Ben and Jerry's. So they sell a product that isn't good for us, but they're the poster child for B Corps because they buy local to them, not local to me, because they give money to charity. Like they score incredibly high in ESG, and they do some other things as well. I don't invest in those companies. Like I just don't deal with those. I like, I'll tell you what I like in a second. The second type of mission-driven company sells a product for more than it's worth so they can give to charity. Tom's Shoes, Warby Parker, they're in that bucket. I don't invest in those either. The only kind of company I invest in are mission-driven companies where the product or service does something that's measurable on the SDGs, and it's built into their product or service. So in that model, when they sell a product, they're having impact. So I worry about what their impact is when I'm picking them, and I do go deep into like, is this real, and what's that? How do you measure that impact, and will it scale up, and all those questions. But once I get past that, and I really like the company, we don't talk about impact anymore. We just talk about business, because if we double revenues, we double impact, more or less. Right? We triple revenues, we triple impact. And so I then wind up just talking about business, and I don't have to worry about the impact. And my companies and my entrepreneurs aren't trying to ever get acquired, so we don't have to have the conversation about loss of mission in case of acquisition, like Ben and Jerry's had. So if you're never going to get acquired, that's not your problem, as long as the founder stays around. Someday I'll have that problem. Someday the founders will leave, and I'll figure out a thesis for that part.
And you don't find, I mean, what I've found, I don't know, I was looking at an ag company in Africa that they were initially committed to smallholder farmers distributing in, urban areas. And then they got this huge, it was definitely beyond growth capital. They got huge influxes of capital, like 5 million. And all of a sudden they said they just can no longer service smallholder farmers. And now they're only going to take from, medium and large size plantation like farms. So like their whole earlier investment thesis went out the window. And I wonder about mission creep with highly successful business companies. I'm curious how you handle that.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen anybody drop the smallholder farmers. We do tons of work with companies that work with smallholder farmers. You know my work in that space.
I do.
And the closest thing we've had is I have a chicken company that said we're going to do some vertical. We're going to start growing our own chickens inside the company too, because we'll make more money. And then I pushed back on them really hard. I said, prove it. I said, before you go down that path, prove to me that you will actually make more money. Like I have no belief that you can do this more efficiently than the farmers. You're not paying the farmers for their labor. You're not hiring anybody. You don't have any overhead. Right? You don't have to build any buildings. You just have to go pick up the chickens. So prove it before you do it. And so he roughly came out to a tiny sliver of better, but he hasn't actually implemented it yet. Short of that, no, everybody else has been growing by adding more farmers, mostly because the entrepreneurs I find love farmers. That's why I pick them. Because it wasn't about the product they were selling. It was about the farmers. And the last conversation I had with one of them was they didn't make a profit last year. We had 3 companies in Africa didn't make a profit last year. And it was pandemic related. And I said, are we just paying the farmers too much? I got to meet and talk to the former president of Equal Exchange, right? So famous Boston-based creator of fair trade, right? Or pioneer of fair trade. And he said, our ethos at Equal Exchange was to pay our vendors as much as we could, as long as it didn't destroy as long as we didn't go into the black in the parent company. So his ethos, his idea was to put as much money out into the farmers as possible in the farming co-ops. So I asked my entrepreneur, are you trying to do the same thing? Like, were you not profitable because you're overpaying your farmers? And he said, yeah, 2 or 3%, but not more than that. Right. So, and his goal is to have 10,000 farmers in his network soon. So no, I'm not seeing that yet. I'm sure it'll happen at some point, in which case, I don't know exactly what we'll do, but maybe that'll be the first company that we drive to get to acquisition and get it out of our portfolio. Craig asked, can you share the blog post on the types of companies? I know it's sitting on my blog. Oh, that was just set to. So that's the URL to my blog, /blog at the top, and it's one of the last 5 posts. So if you just go there, you'll find it on there. And a bunch of other rants. That's where I rant to the world. And then my work in Africa is Africa Eats. So you can find 26 companies that do food and ag with smallholder farmers over there. And then my accelerator is Fledge.co. And I have too many hats at the moment. And if you're trying to turn philanthropy into investing, that's Realize Impact. That's my nonprofit. And then we've been talking about the Angel Accelerator. So I'm not going to type that one in. Okay, any last questions before lunchtime?
Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I typed it in earlier, but like you said, speaking is always better. How many people in delivering the accelerator program, how many people on your team to do that successfully?
Oh, so I do it here for the Fledge program. It's just me, no helpers, just me. For the AVPA program, it's just Rachel, and just her. She's running the whole thing, and so we're literally just sitting here like Sarah's doing, but without a Sarah on the side. We're hitting accept. We're running the show. We're answering the questions. And then we're both bringing in guest speakers to add to the content. And
as the great Gretzky would say, skating to where I want my puck to be. I'll ask the question for someone who doesn't know what impact STGs are. Will the small training help someone like me sooner or later get up to speed with delivering the content and doing what's necessary to be successful?
Yeah, so this is the 3rd program that I've whipped up that is licensable.
Mhm.
I started doing it in 2014. So basically the license comes with all the materials you need to do this on your own, and then access at the moment to me until we have enough others to come in and replace me, but access to me to answer your questions on getting it up and going. And then I'm guest speaking on the other cohort.
Gotcha.
And I expect to just keep doing that. I do the same thing
Awesome.
for Fledge. I did the same thing for the other program.
Yeah, I gave you a ride somewhere you needed to go after a Seattle's Next 50 meeting. I never should have let you go, and I'll leave it there. Thanks so much. Great session. Great to be here.
Thanks so much, Luni. And if there aren't any more questions, that concludes our time today. We have master classes almost every month. They're all on our website under our events on conveners.org. And we'll be sending a recap email next week with the recording of this call as well for people who weren't able to join us today. But I think everyone except for one person was able to join. So thank you so much, Luni. We really appreciate your time and investment. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today, and talk soon.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.